There are many different forms of entertainment out there. There's comedy, there's drama, there's action, there's horror, and the list goes on. But one of the more controversial kinds out there are ones that are very bleak and, for lack of a better word, nihilistic. Now, some love these kinds of movies as they feel they're the only ones that are true art, while others prefer lighter entertainment because they feel the world is dark enough already and don't want constant reminders of that. But I'll get into that topic in a separate video, because today I'd like to explore what actually makes for the most effective nihilistic movies out there, and how the concept can even be used to inspire hope in people, ironically enough. And there will be spoilers ahead for pretty much every movie I mention, so in case there's a movie you don't want ruined, you should probably be on the lookout. This is the only spoiler warning I'll be giving you. Okay, so just to start off with a quick definition for those of you who don't know, nihilism is when somebody rejects all forms of religion and morals, believing life to be completely meaningless and that nothing matters. Usually hopelessness is a common feeling among nihilists, but that isn't a requirement. And honestly, the best example I can think of a nihilist is Lotso Huggenbear from Toy Story 3. He believes that a toy's existence means absolutely nothing and that they're all just junk to be tossed in the trash when a kid gets bored with them. He doesn't believe in the love between children and their toys, even doing everything he can to destroy that love between anything he can, and refuses to accept that toys have a purpose. Because playing with toys is actually crucial to a child's development. A kid who can't play with toys will grow up without some important life skills. And not to mention, even if they are just fluff and plastic, children do put a lot of love into their favorite toys that might even last the rest of their lives. Now, Woody can see the value in being a toy, but Lotso can't. He just thinks toys are created to make companies money, amuse children for a bit, and then get thrown in the dumpster. So his only goal, beyond destroying attachments, that is to remain at the butterfly room in the daycare for as long as he possibly can, because he believes that's the only way to prevent himself from being thrown out and destroyed. In other words, Lotso is a man who believes in nothing except the absolute worst in everything. That life is pointless, a hopeless cause, and clings to the little power he has both to boost himself up and to ensure his own prolonged survival. And after all, if the life of a toy is pointless, there surely won't be anything for them after they're destroyed, would there? But I'm getting off topic here. Let's get back on track. The point is, Lotso perfectly represents the thinking of a nihilist, if an evil one. But there are also certain movies out there that are noted to be nihilistic in tone, which basically means they're as dark as a story can possibly get and ends on a rather hopeless note. And once again, these are movies that normal people usually don't care for. But again, I feel that there is a proper way to use it, with one of the best examples I've ever seen being Primal Fear. Because in this particular case, the nihilistic ending actually serves a purpose. It's not bleak for no reason. It's saying something worth saying. Because Vale spends the entire movie acting like an arrogant know-it-all who flaunts the fact that he takes cases for the money and publicity and not for justice. In fact, his first lines of dialogue basically sum up his attitude perfectly. But over the course of the story, we start to see that he actually does have a conscience and does care about his friends and clients. He even goes from only taking on Aaron's case because it's $1 million worth of fame to wanting to get him off, not just because it's his job, but because he genuinely believes he's innocent. He genuinely comes to care for what he believes to be a nice boy with some disturbing mental problems. But in the final moments, he realizes that it was all an act. Aaron actually was a crazed, psychotic murderer and completely fooled him. After that, all Vale can do is walk out of the prison with a look of pure despair on his face. Now, it is a pretty nihilistic ending, yes, but it works really well because that nihilism is serving a purpose. To put it simply, Vale isn't crushed by the realization because of the blow to his ego. Though at the same time, he is a sharp guy who takes great pride in noticing what others don't, and is pretty good at it, especially because his whole job depends on it. But that's not why he's so upset. Maybe the Vale at the beginning would have been annoyed by the blow to his ego, but not the one at the end. It's because he genuinely believed in this kid's innocence. He actually came to care about him as more than just his lawyer. So for it to be revealed that he was playing him like a sucker the whole time makes him feel totally betrayed. He just let a psychotic murderer off the hook, believing him to be innocent, and there's nothing he can do about it. To put it another way, Vale had always touted that the most important things to him as a lawyer was winning, money, and fame. This kid brings out the good in him, and it was all just a ploy on his part. He genuinely believed for once that he was doing the right thing and was proven completely wrong. But where this serves a purpose is in the fact that it might make him a better lawyer in the future. Maybe this experience will make him a bit more humble, a bit more interested in whether the person he's defending is actually innocent or not, and a bit more concerned with whether or not justice is actually served. Basically, he's seen the words he himself said at the beginning be played out right before his eyes, and he doesn't like it. So while he did inadvertently get a psychotic killer off and be completely played by him, it might just help make him a better lawyer and person in the future. Now sure, maybe the whole thing will only reinforce his prior beliefs, but it's impossible to know. The point is, the nihilism works in this case because it teaches Vale a very important lesson. Now, whether or not he learns from it is a different story, but at least there's the potential for something good to come from it. Now, contrast this with another crime film, Seven. An excellent movie to be sure, but also perhaps one of the most nihilistic things I've ever seen. And unlike Primal Fear, the nihilism doesn't appear to serve any purpose beyond David Fincher just saying that the world is a terrible place to live in. The whole movie is completely bleak. There's no hope, no resolution, no compromise. It's honestly about as nihilistic as you can get. And again, there's no purpose for it beyond nihilism just for nihilism's sake. Even the one ray of hope in Morgan Freeman's last line, Ernest Hemingway once wrote, "The world is a fine place and worth fighting for." I agree with the second part. Was mandated by the studio and something David Fincher didn't even care for. Now listen, it was his script, and I'll never question a filmmaker's right to bring their vision to life exactly how they want it. But at the same time, as a fellow writer, I do believe that a storyteller has a responsibility to the audience that's going to be seeing or reading their story. I mean, what did David Fincher want with this movie? For people to go home and kill themselves? Because I hate to say it, but most people are not artists. nor do they understand complex art. That's why most don't like overly bleak movies. They go to the theater to be entertained, and frankly, there's some in this world that just can't handle something so hopeless. So if they're going to sit through a movie as overly nihilistic as Seven, frankly, that final line is owed to them because it allows them to walk away with something other than the idea that people are horrible and that there's no hope for any of us. Because, as I've already said quite a few times, at least the nihilism in Primal Fear is saying something worth saying. It sends a message to both Martin Vale and the audience that might inspire them to be better people. Basically, it's inspiring hope through hopelessness. Try to get your head around that one. Seven is overly nihilistic just because David Fincher wants it to be. And while that may make it a great movie, it doesn't really say anything positive to the audience. In other words, in my amateur writer opinion, I believe that nihilism is best used when it serves some kind of purpose and isn't used just for cynicism's sake or because any given person wants the worst ending possible. And that's just one of many, many reasons why I always admired famed director Stanley Kubrick. The man was a complete cynic by nature, but in most of his movies he never crossed the line into full-blown nihilism. For instance, in Doctor Strangelove, the world ends, but there's hope for humanity to survive. In Barry Lyndon, nobody may be left better off by the events of the movie, but at least the preferable status quo is restored and the title character does get a comeuppance. In The Shining, Jack may go insane, kill Halloran, and die, but at least Danny and Wendy escape with their lives, if with quite a bit of trauma on their hands. Or even in Full Metal Jacket, Joker commits a war crime and develops the 1,000-yard stare, but did it for the right reasons, to show mercy to an enemy soldier. Again, Kubrick's movies are by no means optimistic or bright, but he never really delves into full nihilism and seemed to make sure that his cynicism is justified within the narrative and that there is some kind of compromise. Because again, the simple truth is that certain people just can't handle pure nihilism without some sort of middle ground, and Kubrick seemed to understand that very well even with his cynical nature. Now listen, as I just stated, there are 100 other infinitely more important reasons why Stanley Kubrick is one of my all-time favorite directors. In fact, what I just covered is mostly an afterthought, all things considered. And I'm also not trying to denounce Seven or I'm saying it's a bad movie just because it's bleak. I'm not saying that at all. As I've already freely admitted, it is a great movie and very well written. The only point I'm trying to make here is that it's not the best use of nihilism out there. That is the only thing I was trying to say. Because I've already gone over a few times, it's generally hard to get people to accept nihilism, especially when nothing else is offered. And that's why I believe Primal Fear does it so well, because it ends on a downbeat and rather hopeless note, but at least it's teaching something in the process and does offer the slightest bit of hope that the lesson will be applied after the fact. And honestly, I'd say that's frankly the best way you can possibly use it if you want a bleak ending. Because just like how people demand a happy ending mean something and not be happy just for the sake of it, a bleak ending should also mean something as well. Now sure, sometimes even then the audience won't necessarily accept it, but at least in that case a much better argument can be made for why the nihilistic ending was the right one. Alright, I think that's all I have to say on that. So now I'd like to hear your thoughts. Do you believe that nihilism is best used in movies when it serves an actual purpose? Or do you think a movie doesn't need to justify having a bleak tone and that audiences should just deal with it? Please let me know what you think in the comments. And remember, you don't have to agree with me on this topic. If you think I'm wrong about the whole thing, that's totally fine, and I've got no issues with you if you do. You can most definitely enjoy any kind of movie that you want to. And finally, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you all next time.